Section 1.1 The Birth of a Leader. George Washington was born on February 22, 1732, in the British colony of Virginia, into a modest yet prominent family. His father, Augustine Washington, was a successful landowner, and his mother, Mary Montague, came from a respected family. From a young age, George exhibited a sense of responsibility and an unwavering moral compass. Growing up on the Pope's Creek estate, George's early education was informal, but he had an innate curiosity and a passion for learning. His father passed away when George was just 11, leaving him with a sense of duty beyond his years. His upbringing instilled in him a sense of honor, discipline, and the importance of land and family. Section 1.2 A Soldier's Calling. At age 16, Washington's education led him to the field of surveying. He worked with a land surveyor to map large portions of Virginia. This gave him invaluable knowledge of the American frontier, a skill that would prove essential in later life. At 20, George was appointed as a major boss in the Virginia militia during the French and Indian War, 1754-1763. His experiences in battle shaped his views on leadership and the complexities of war. During this time, Washington was both an officer and a soldier, learning the art of war from the ground up. Though the war was a formative experience, it also left Washington with deep scars, both physically and emotionally, as he narrowly escaped death multiple times. Section 1.3 The Return to Virginia. After the French and Indian War, George Washington returned to Virginia, where he married Martha Custis, a wealthy widow, in 1759. Their union brought Washington great wealth and land, making him one of the richest men in Virginia. However, he remained a servant to the ideals of liberty and was determined not to let his wealth and status distract him from his country's greater needs. As a landowner and public servant, Washington became involved in the political landscape of Virginia. He was elected to the Virginia House of Burgesses, where he began to speak out against British policies that taxed the colonies. He was becoming increasingly aware of the growing discontent with British rule and the rights of the American colonists. Section 1.4 A Foretelling of Change. By the 1760s, tensions between the American colonies and Britain were mounting. Washington was not initially an outspoken critic of the Crown, but events such as the Stamp Act and the D. Townshend Acts began to anger him. Though still loyal to the British Crown, he recognized the need for unity among the colonies. Washington's first serious foray into politics came when he spoke at a meeting of Virginia's colonial leaders in 1769. He began to advocate for a unified response to British policies. His reputation as a rising leader among the colonies started to take root, setting the stage for the leadership role he would soon assume. Chapter 2 The Revolutionary Spark. Browse. Section 2.1 The Outbreak of War. As the years went by, colonial resentment of British policies continued to rise. In 1774, after the British closed the port of Boston in retaliation for the Boston Tea Party, Washington was deeply moved by the colonial response. The colonies had united in their defiance of Britain, and Washington recognized that this could lead to a revolution. When the First Continental Congress was convened in 1774, Washington was selected as a delegate from Virginia. It was here that Washington realized the full scale of the colonial rebellion and the necessity of armed resistance. The war had already begun, and soon, Washington would be called to serve his country in a way he never expected. Section 2.2 The Commander-in-Chief. In 1775, after the battles of the Lexington and Concord, the Continental Congress formed the Continental Army to fight against Britain. They appointed George Washington as Commander-in-Chief of the Army, a choice that both honored him and placed a tremendous burden on his shoulders. Washington accepted the responsibility with determination, though he knew the road ahead would be perilous. Washington immediately set to work organizing the army. His leadership skills were put to the test as he faced untrained soldiers, limited resources, and a powerful enemy. The early years of the Revolution were tough, with setbacks like the loss of New York City and the retreat across New Jersey. Yet, through it all, Washington's leadership remained unshakable. Section 2.3. The Battle of Trenton. The year 1776 was a turning point for Washington and the Revolution. After a series of defeats, Washington led his troops across the Delaware River on Christmas night, launching a surprise attack on the Hessians at Trenton, New Jersey. The victory was a much-needed morale boost for the American cause, showing that Washington's leadership could turn the tide even in the face of overwhelming odds. This victory was crucial not just for its military significance, but for its political impact. It reignited hope in the American cause and proved to Washington's soldiers that their struggle was not in vain. The win at Trenton led to further successes in the coming year, including the Battle of Princeton, solidifying Washington's reputation as a skilled and determined leader. Section 2.4. The Winter at Valley Forge. The winter of 1777-1778 at Valley Forge tested Washington's leadership and resolve. The Continental Army endured one of the harshest winters in American history. Food was scarce, clothing was inadequate, and morale was at an all-time low. But Washington remained with his troops, leading by example. His presence during these hard times proved that leadership was not just about victory, it was about enduring hardship and persevering for a greater cause. During this time, Washington sought the help of foreign allies, including the Baron von Steuben, a Prussian military officer who helped train and discipline Washington's army. The training transformed the Continental Army into a more professional fighting force, setting the stage for future victories. Chapter 3. The Turning Point. Jataris. Section 3.1. The Alliance with France. As the war raged on, Washington's leadership became increasingly pivotal. The turning point came in 1777, when Washington secured the Prussian-French alliance after the American victory at Saratoga. This was a crucial moment in the Revolution, as France formally recognized the United States and provided military and financial support. Washington's diplomatic skills were instrumental in cultivating this alliance. His ability to build relationships and work with foreign governments helped secure vital resources for the war effort, including troops, weapons, and funds. The involvement of France tipped the balance in favor of the Americans, and Washington's strategy of wearing down the British became more effective. Section 3.2. The Battle of Monmouth. In 1778, Washington's forces faced the British in the Battle of Monmouth in New Jersey. The battle ended in a stalemate, but it marked a major shift in the war. Washington's army was now able to hold its own against the British. Thanks in part to the training at Valley Forge, the battle proved that the Continental Army was no longer just a group of untrained rebels, but a legitimate military force capable of challenging the might of the British Empire. Despite the challenges of the battlefield, Washington's leadership remained resolute. His strategic thinking and ability to inspire his troops played a significant role in keeping the army focused on the ultimate goal: independence from British rule. Section 3.3. The Siege of Yorktown. By 1781, the war had reached a critical stage. The British, led by the General Cornwallis, had fortified themselves in Yorktown, Virginia. Washington, along with his French allies, laid siege to the British position, cutting off their escape routes and trapping them on the peninsula. The Siege of Yorktown became the final major military action of the war. Washington's leadership during the siege was exemplary. He coordinated efforts with French forces, ensuring that the Americans and their allies worked in unison. The British surrendered on October 19, 1781, effectively ending the Revolutionary War and securing American independence. Section 3.4. The Treaty of Paris. After the victory at Yorktown, Washington's focus shifted to diplomacy. The Treaty of Paris, signed in 1783, officially ended the war and recognized the United States as an independent nation. Washington's leadership had brought the country to the brink of its independence, and his wisdom during the peace talks ensured that the new nation would be respected on the world stage. Washington's role in the Revolution earned him the admiration of Americans and the respect of the international community. However, he knew that the challenges of nation-building were just beginning. Chapter 4. The Birth of a Nation. Section 4.1. A Call to Serve. After the war, George Washington retired to his estate at Mount Vernon, hoping to return to a life of peace and farming. However, the young nation was in turmoil. The Articles of Confederation had failed to create a strong central government, leading to economic instability and political chaos. In 1787, Washington was called upon to serve once again, this time at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Washington's presence at the convention was vital. His reputation as a war hero gave him the moral authority needed to unite the delegates. Despite his desire to remain out of the public eye, Washington recognized the urgency of the moment and agreed to preside over the convention. His leadership helped steer the discussions toward the creation of the U.S. Constitution, which would provide the framework for the nation's future. Section 4.2, the First President. In 1789, the newly formed Electoral College unanimously elected George Washington as the first President of the United States. Washington's election was not just a victory for him personally, it was a triumph for the ideals of democracy and self-governance. Washington took office with a deep understanding of the responsibility he bore, knowing that the future of the nation depended on the decisions made during his presidency. As president, Washington faced numerous challenges, including the establishment of a functioning government, the creation of financial systems, and the struggle to maintain neutrality in foreign affairs. His leadership set many important precedents, such as the creation of the cabinet and the decision to step down after 2 terms, establishing the tradition of presidential limits. Section 4.3, the Neutrality Proclamation. One of Washington's key contributions during his presidency was the Neutrality Proclamation of 1793. Amid growing tensions between Britain and France, Washington chose to keep the United States out of the conflict, believing that the fledgling nation was not yet ready to engage in foreign wars. This policy of neutrality helped solidify Washington's legacy as a leader, focused on the long-term survival of the country. Section 4.4, the Farewell Address. In 1796, after 2 terms in office, Washington announced that he would not seek a 3rd term. In his famous Farewell Address, Washington warned the nation about the dangers of political parties and foreign entanglements. His words would continue to influence American politics for generations. Chapter 5, The Legacy of George Washington. Barbados, Section 5.1, A Nation Built on Freedom. George Washington's legacy as the father of the nation is undeniable. Through his leadership in both war and peace, Washington helped shape a new nation grounded in the ideals of liberty, democracy, and self-governance. His wisdom, integrity, and sense of duty set the standard for future presidents and leaders. Section 5.2, The Unseen Leader. Though Washington is often remembered for his public roles, his most enduring qualities were those seen behind the scenes. His commitment to honesty, sacrifice, and the common good shaped not only his leadership, but the principles on which America was founded. Section 5.3, Washington's Enduring Influence. Washington passed away on December 14, 1799, at the age of 67. His death marked the end of an era, but his influence continued to guide the nation he helped to create. Statues, memorials, and schools across the nation serve as reminders of his unparalleled contribution to America's freedom and development. Section 5.4, Remembering George Washington. Washington's legacy lives on not only through monuments, but through the spirit of the United States itself. He is remembered not as a perfect leader, but as one who understood the gravity of his role and fulfilled it with honor and courage. Washington's life is a testament to the power of leadership, sacrifice, and the enduring strength of freedom.